A few months ago, I asked a coaching client a question. She had recently been laid off from a corporate role that she loved. This wasn't just any job, it was a high prestige role, high responsibility, high income, the kind of position people spend decades trying to achieve. And when I asked her this question, she looked down, her eyes darted around the room, and there was a long pause. Then she shook her head and said, I don't know. The question I asked wasn't about her resume. It wasn't about interviewing. It wasn't about finding another job. The question I asked was, who are you now that you're no longer in your corporate role? And she couldn't answer it. If you're a mid-career or midlife professional woman, there's a good chance that you've experienced some version of this yourself. Maybe you've been laid off. Maybe you're considering retirement. Maybe you're just burned out. Maybe you're questioning whether you want the next promotion. Or maybe you've simply reached a point where the life you've built no longer fits the person you've become. Today, I want to talk about what I call the identity trap, and more importantly, how to escape it. Because your title is something you do, it's not who you are. For most of our lives, we are rewarded for achievement. We get the good grades, we get the degree, we get the job and the promotion. We get the bigger office, get the bigger paycheck, and the better title. Over time, something subtly begins to happen, and we stop describing ourselves by our values. We start describing ourselves by our roles. Think about how most conversations begin. You meet someone new and they ask, what do you do? Not what do you enjoy, not what you're passionate about. What are you learning these days? No. What kind of person you're becoming? Instead, we reduce ourselves to our occupation. I'm a director. I'm a VP. I'm an engineer. I'm an HR executive. I'm a teacher. I'm a manager. Those aren't identities. Those are roles, and roles can change overnight. When your identity is fused with your job, every career disruption feels personal. A layoff becomes a statement about your worth. A missed promotion becomes evidence that you're failing. And a career pivot feels like losing a piece of yourself. And that's why so many accomplished women like yourself struggle during transitions. They aren't just grieving a job, they're grieving an identity that has been lost. I was reminded of this through another client I'll call Jennifer. And Jennifer spent 20 plus years climbing the corporate ladder. And she was successful by every traditional measure: strong salary, leadership roles, respect from colleagues, an impressive resume. But underneath all that success, something wasn't working. She described herself feeling like an absentee parent. Now, she was physically present, but mentally and emotionally, work occupied so much space that there wasn't much left for the people she loved. The higher she climbed, the more she felt trapped. And yet she kept pushing. Why? Because many of us have been taught that success only moves in one direction: up. Bigger role, bigger title, more responsibility, more visibility, more prestige. Success is career ascension. The belief that an opportunity comes along and you should automatically want it, you should automatically take it. And the problem with that is that the life you wanted at 30 may not be the life you want at 55. Your needs evolve, your priorities evolve, your energy evolves, your responsibilities evolve. But many women never give themselves permission to redesign their careers to match the season they're in. Now, Jennifer eventually realized that she didn't want a bigger title. She needed a bigger life. And those are not the same. And this is where the concept of designing your pivot becomes so powerful. Now, most career advice starts with the question, what job do you want? Designing your pivot starts with a different question. What kind of life do you want? Because your career is only one part of your life. You also have your health and your family and your friendships, your personal growth, your finances, your spirituality, your hobbies, and your community. And when work expands to consume everything else, important things get lost. So instead of building your life around your job, designing your pivot encourages you to build your work around the life you want to create. That's why I often help clients create what I call an identity map. So instead of focusing on titles, we focus on your needs and your values. So questions like, how much flexibility do you need become important? How much income do you need? What type of work energizes you? I ask things like, what kind of culture supports your well-being? How much travel is realistic for you at this time of your life? How much stress are you willing to tolerate? How do you want your work to support your life? Do you want to continue to work at all? Now, notice that none of these questions require a title, because a title cannot tell you whether you'll be fulfilled. Recently, there was a lot of discussion around comments made by Emma Grede, co-founder of Skims, regarding remote work and career advancement. And what struck me among many other things wasn't whether people agreed or disagreed. What struck me was the assumption that everyone should want the same version of success. Mid-career professionals often reach a point where your priorities shift, and some people want flexibility, some people want purpose, some want more time with family. Many of us want to protect our health, or we may want a slower pace. None of these choices are wrong, and success is personal. And if you don't define it for yourself, someone else will define it for you. So, how do you begin rediscovering yourself? Well, I often start by creating space for self dialogue and some reflection. So, ask yourself, who do I want to be today? Who am I outside of work? What do I stand for? And who are the people most important to me? What matters most to me right now? What brings me joy? What am I curious about? What do I need from work besides a title? Now, these questions may seem simple, but I think they're powerful because they connect you with your values. And values are far more stable than job titles. Now, one mindset shift I encourage you to make is this. Instead of saying, I'm a vice president, try saying, I'm the type of person who develops people and organizations. Instead of identifying yourself as, I'm a project manager, try this instead. I'm the type of person who brings order to complexity. Instead of, I'm an executive, try, I'm the type of person who creates impact and solves meaningful problems. And do you hear the difference? One is attached to a role, the other is attached to who you are. Roles change, but values endure. Titles change, character remains. When your identity is grounded in your strengths, your values, and purpose, life and career transitions become much less threatening because you know who you are regardless of where you work. If there's one thing I want you to remember from today's video, it's this: your past success does not obligate you to future misery. So you do not have to continue pursuing a version of success that no longer fits your life. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to pivot. You are allowed to want something different, and you're certainly allowed to be more than your job title. Now, I'd love to hear from you. So tell me in the comments, how would you describe yourself without using your job title? And if this conversation resonated with you, make sure to subscribe. And by the way, I'm Carol. I'm a career and life transitions coach, and I help midlife women get clear on what's next, create a roadmap for where they're going, and become who they're meant to be. On this channel, we talk about career transitions, identity, mindset, personal growth, and building a life aligned to your values without burnout. More information about me is in the description, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.